Nowadays, it seems like every big company out there is spending billions of dollars on their own version of an ecosystem with the purpose to demand your loyalty and to force you into using their own devices. I can tell that a lot of people, especially Apple users, are worried about ever leaving their ecosystems because everything works so seamlessly with one Apple device and another. For me, even though these are Apple and Samsung devices, I don't rely on any of their first party services, and instead I use apps and services that don't care about which device I use and work well with any device. I've been trying to do this for about a year now, and I think I have completed it. And honestly, living outside of one specific ecosystem feels liberating. Today, I want to show you guys how I achieve ecosystem independence to give you guys an idea of how you can do it as well. One of my favorite things about living in an ecosystem is file sharing. AirDrop works so well and so seamlessly across my iPhone and my Mac and vice versa, as well as on other Apple devices. The same goes for Quick Share and Nearby Share, which works with all Android devices and even on Windows. There have been recent development in the scheme of file sharing, like Samsung and Google supporting AirDrop with Quick Share and Nearby Share. However, it is still pretty much limited and requires specific settings on the Apple side. That's why I use the two apps to solve my file sharing issue across my Samsung Android and my MacBook. The main app I use for wireless file transfers is Blip. It is a free app that is available on almost every platform, with only the Linux version yet to be released. At its core, it is an app that transfers files over Wi-Fi, meaning the faster your Wi-Fi is, the faster your transfer speeds are. Speaking from experience, the speeds are pretty comparable to those of AirDrop and Quick Share, and sometimes even faster. Blip also knows when devices when I'm sharing to and from aren't on the same network. In those cases, the transfers will go through Blip servers, which is a downside in terms of privacy, but I mostly use Blip at home on my local Wi-Fi network, so it isn't really that big of a deal for me. One of my favorite things about Blip is how it integrates with the system. Unlike alternatives like Local Send, you don't need to have the app opened to transfer files and receive files. It suddenly runs in the background without taking your system resources. I always get a notification when I start a new transfer on my recipient device, even when that device is in sleep. If you're looking for a much more privacy-friendly and open source alternative, and you can deal with having the app opened on both devices to share and receive files, you can check out Local Send. But personally, I use Blip. For files that are larger, like a bulk of 4K videos, I resort to a wired connection via Android file transfer. It's not that great, and the app lacks Apple Silicon support, which might be a problem in the future, but I guess it works for now since I don't really have to do this often, and my main filming device is my iPhone 12 mini. For Linux and Windows PCs, you don't need an app, and you can just start wired transfers by just plugging in your Android phone with a cable and enabling wired file transfers on the Android side. Let's now move on to messaging and texting. I'm pretty sure that most of the road know already, but for my fellow Americans out there, we simply use messaging apps like Viber, Telegram, and Facebook Messenger in my country. We also use WhatsApp to communicate with people across Europe and the rest of Asia, and local and regional apps like Line, WeChat, and KakaoTalk also exist in countries like Japan, China, and South Korea. Personally, I use the main three as they are the most popular at home, but I have accounts for WhatsApp, WeChat, and KakaoTalk as I have a few native friends living in other countries. Oh, and I also use Discord for hanging out with my friends. All of them work well even on Mac and other operating systems, as there are desktop versions available which are as feature-rich as on mobile. If you're more reliant on SMS and RCS for texting, there's actually quite a lot of options available out there. Personally, I like to use Google Messages for web since it's SMS and RCS compatible, and all of my chats can easily be synced to desktop with a few clicks on the mobile version of Google Messages. You can actually set the default messaging app to Google Messages on your Android, install the app on your Mac or Windows PC, and then with a quick setup, you can now look at messages from desktop with real-time notifications. So on the messaging side, I'm fully covered. Then for my email and calendar, I just use Gmail and Google Calendar. Both come with my Google account, and although I'm still on the free tier with only 15 gigabytes, it's completely okay for me. Everyone uses Gmail, so it's easy to communicate with others, and since Google Calendar integrates with Gmail pretty well, it's simple to create new events using what's from the emails. Both Gmail and Google Calendar are available on both iOS and Android, and as for desktop platforms, web apps are available. Personally on mobile, since I prefer the native design of Samsung's One UI, I simply sign in with my Google account and give the default calendar app access to it. So now I've got the same events but in a UI design that I prefer. For email though, I just use the Gmail app, and on Mac it's self-explanatory, I use the web app. For my browser, I use Brave, which is cross-platform and is known for being a privacy-first browser. It is built on Chromium, the same browser engine as Google Chrome, which means that almost all the websites are going to work well without issues. Plus, it has support for the same fast extensions as on Chrome and has a pretty solid ad blocker built in. Most importantly, it syncs using a sync chain that is super seamless across every platform and is also end-to-end encrypted. It takes a few minutes to set up, and after that, things like history, bookmarks, reading lists, open tabs, passwords, settings, themes, and even extensions can be synced across iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, and even Linux. It also has support for installing websites as standalone apps, which is quite useful for a few things I'm going to talk about later in the video. For passwords, I use Bitwarden, as many people in the privacy and security community recommends it, and the company itself is known for doing business in the best interest of user privacy. All of my passwords are synced safely and securely using end-to-end encryption across all platforms. Browser extensions are even available for Chromium and Firefox browsers that support autofill. On Android, you can set the autofill to Bitwarden, which makes it so that it suggests Bitwarden when the system detects password and username field. For two-factor authentication codes, I use NTAuth. It's also a privacy-respecting and encrypted service. The main reason why I use it is because I don't want to pay for a higher tier of Bitwarden. Bitwarden also offers support for 2FA codes, but it's only available in the paid tier, and since I want to use the free one while having 2FA codes for extra security, I use NTAuth alongside it. Just like Bitwarden, NTAuth is cross-platform and syncs my 2FA codes seamlessly and safely. Now let's talk about task and note-taking. For my to-do list app, I just use the free version of TickTick. It's available on almost every platform, and all of the tasks I add on my Android show up on my Mac and also on other devices that I have signed in, like my secondary iPhone. TickTick offers many features like lists, sublists, due dates, repeated tasks, notes, reminders, and natural language support for adding tasks, so it's a pretty complete and seamless package. For note-taking, I'm gonna be completely honest here, I still haven't found a seamless way with Obsidian. I used to use Notion, which if I still do, I won't have any problems syncing between my Android and my Mac, but in late December of last year, I switched to Obsidian. Obsidian is known for its customizability and its privacy-first design, meaning all of the notes are stored locally, which is a good thing, but when it comes to syncing, it's pretty limited. Either pay for Obsidian Sync, which is completely understandable as they are hosting our notes securely on their servers, or use alternative methods like iCloud and Google Drive. When I used my iPhone as my main phone, I was able to put all of my notes inside a folder in iCloud. I was able to point the Obsidian apps on both macOS and iOS to that location and was able to sync. Although I'm able to do the same thing with Google Drive on macOS, on Android, Google Drive doesn't show up as a location in the file manager, meaning I can't really point the Obsidian Android app to that location even if I have all of my notes on Google Drive. I also tried AutoSync, but it only offers a 14-day free period and is not that smooth. For now, I just use Google Keep on my phone for quick ideas and then use Obsidian on my Mac to expand them. This is really a me problem because I don't want to pay for anything, and if you're using something like Notion or other note-taking apps or pay for Obsidian Sync, that it wouldn't be an issue at all. This is something that I'm still trying to figure out, so let me know if you guys have some suggestions. Okay, so I actually found a solution to this. Apparently, I was using the wrong version of AutoSync. The developer has different versions, and the one that I should be using is AutoSync for Google Drive, otherwise known as Drive Sync. And their free version offered one folder to have two-way sync, which is the way that I need to sync in order for my notes on Google Drive to show up on my Android phone. And with that correct version installed, I was able to set up the folder locally and then connect it to the folder inside of Google Drive. And with that, I was able to sync the new changes that I've made on my desktop version of Obsidian, which goes to Google Drive, to my mobile version of Obsidian. And as you can see, it does a lot of things in the background. It's not as quick or as smooth as native methods like Google Keep or Obsidian Sync, but hey, at least it lets me to sync for free, and I actually don't need to worry about the Google Drive storage that much because Obsidian files, they're just marked down text files which are super lightweight, and I only have a few images there. And because I gave Drive Sync to run in the background silently yet actively, I'm able to automatically sync files periodically, although not constantly, to the point where it feels seamless while saving my system resources and my battery life. photos and videos, it's pretty simple. I just use Google Photos, which uses the storage from Google Drive. The mobile app is available on both iOS and Android and syncs photos pretty seamlessly. And in order to access it on desktop, all you need to do is to go to photos.google.com. Alternatively, you can install it as a native app, meaning it's going to open in a separate window using the browser of your choice. If you're trying to be ecosystem independent, I think it's best to avoid first-party ecosystem audio products like the AirPods or the Galaxy Buds. They do connect to any device, like the AirPods connecting to Androids and vice versa, but you won't be able to use all the features. So it's best to go with alternative brands like Nothing, Bose, Soundcore, Xiaomi, Sony, etc. that don't care about what device you're using, have their own apps on all platforms, and works well with iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, and Linux. Personally, I use the Redmi Buds 6 Lite as my earbuds because it has good sound quality and decent active noise cancellation for its price, and pairs well with my Samsung Android, secondary iPhone, and my Mac, and their app is available on both iOS and Android. Just like for earbuds and headphones, it's best to avoid products like the Apple Watch or the Galaxy Watch when attempting to be ecosystem independent. Fortunately, you have many options ranging from fitness-focused ones like Garmin and ring-style ones like the Ultra Human Ring or the Aura Ring to cheap fitness trackers like the Mi Band series. Personally, I use the Mi Band 9 Pro because of its durability, battery life, heart rate tracking, and decent sleep tracking. Other fitness trackers like the Whoop are also available. With that said, there are some conveniences that I wish I had between my Mac and my Android. One of them is clipboard syncing. To be honest, I don't find myself using that feature all the time, but there are some times when having that would be convenient. The only third-party solution I've found that works to a certain extent is Clip Relay, which as of now is still a bit buggy. Connecting the two devices is a breeze, and syncing from Mac to Android seems to work okay, but improvement is still needed for auto-syncing from Android to Mac. Another convenience that I want is to be able to cast my Android screen to my Mac, like mirror to iPhone in the Apple ecosystem. And although there's a solution available with Android Screencast, I'd like to find an alternative that doesn't involve the command line. Ultimately, the things in the wish list are a must-have for me, so I'm very satisfied with this cross-platform ecosystem setup, and I don't think I'd have to switch to a single brand ecosystem to get all those conveniences. But yeah, that's just me. Let me know down in the comments about your guys' experiences and thoughts on this topic. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in another video.